All right, so hopping into it, this sketchbook slash journal is from Michael's. It's just a blank page sketchbook, and it served me well, and I really like how it looks, but I wouldn't actually recommend using or buying a sketchbook just for this. If you already have a book in mind, then that's perfect. But if you haven't gotten one yet and you're interested in collage journaling, then I would highly recommend going to a thrift store and seeing what they have there. Next time that I have to buy one, I want to go and look at the books that they have at thrift stores. Usually they tend to have a lot of really old books that nobody really buys because they're either outdated or they're encyclopedias or whatever it is. And I think it's a really good way to repurpose those books. And also, because this is a blank page journal, I end up having to cover the entire page most of the time, as you'll see. And I think having text in the background would just be a lot more aesthetically pleasing for the collaging process than having a blank page. And you wouldn't end up needing to use as many resources as I have because I've been covering the entire page. All right, opening to the first 2 pages. I did start this off by going over different witchy holidays, starting with Samhain, which is usually correlated with Halloween, although it doesn't always fall on October 31st. Usually it's the week after Halloween. But Samhain just kind of marks the witches' new year. It's the first festival, and it is the midpoint between autumn and winter. Then on this page we have Yule, which is also the winter solstice, so it marks the beginning of winter, and it also represents the darkest night of the year, which is super interesting. So these were my first 2 pages that I did, and even though they're kind of basic, I'm really proud of them because I was trying so hard at this point to make them look aesthetically pleasing. As I've made this journal, I've learned to be easier on myself, I should say, in terms of perfectionism, because with the collaging process, some things just don't turn out perfect. It's just part of the process. But I was really happy with how these first 2 came out. All right, and the next 2 are 2 more holidays, Imbolc and Ostara. Imbolc just kind of signals that the light of life is returning since winter has started. Plants are starting to come back. It's not full spring yet, but almost spring. I believe this does mark the halfway point between winter and spring. It might not exactly though. Ostara is the spring equinox, so it does mark the beginning of spring. The light of life has returned. We're out of the dark half of the year, so I had a lot more floral and green relations. Even though Imbolc is technically winter, I associate it more with spring because it kind of signals that spring is coming. Then moving on, we have Beltane, which is the halfway point between spring and summer. It's also known as May Day, and it's a fertility festival. Then here we have Litha, which is midsummer or the summer solstice, marking the beginning of summer. It's also the longest day of the year, so this is the most amount of daylight that we get in the year. And so sometimes when these holidays pop up, I really want to go all out and do as much as I can. And other times I'm really just not feeling the energy of it, and so I'll be a little bit more chill and might just enjoy that it's a holiday but not actually do anything. After Litha, we have the last 2 holidays of the year, which is Lammas and Mabon. Lammas is technically associated with a bread festival. It marks the beginning of the harvest season, and one of the first crops that's harvested is wheat. So historically, people would make bread to celebrate the beginning of harvest. It also represents the midpoint between summer and autumn. Lammas is August 1st, so it actually wasn't that long ago from when I'm filming this video, and I really like it because, one, I love bread and I love making bread, but also it marks that autumn is coming soon, and usually by the time that Lammas comes around, I'm ready for summer to be over because it is unbearably hot. Then we have Mabon, which is September 21st to the 23rd, and this is marking the end of the harvest season. It is also the autumn equinox, so it marks the beginning of fall. This is also one of the days of the year where day and night are split evenly, so we have the same amount of daytime that we do nighttime. But after this point, nighttime will start to take over day, so most of our days will be more dark than they are light. This is also the last festival in the year. So after this, it would be followed by Samhain or Halloween right after. I'm actually really proud of these 2 pages. I feel like the sticker book that I have, which I'll link in the description box, just had stickers that were very suited to these 2 festivals. So I was super proud of these pages. Next, we have the moon phases that I went over. So I started with the dark moon, which I tend to differentiate as the days that the moon is completely dark. And then we have the new moon, which was where my first mistakes were in making pages. I messed up here and here, and I was so upset that I messed up this page, but life goes on and it's completely fine. I really just use this again as a creative outlet, and I will sometimes use this as a quick reference guide for myself. But yes, the 2 first moon phases that I started out with, and for me personally, I do differentiate the dark moon from the new moon, even though I think scientifically they are kind of seen as the same. Then moving on, have a page on the waxing moon and the full moon. I really like these 2. I think they're super pretty. And fun fact, I like almost blew out my silver Sharpie doing the moon phases because I guess it did not have that much juice left in it after not being used for 2 to 3 years. Then finally we have the waning moon, and then I started on the next section, which was more correspondences. So what each day of the week corresponds to, and here we can see more of my mistakes. I definitely did not plan out how each day of the week was going to fit into this little box. By the end of it, I forgot I hadn't done Sunday, and so I had to add another little section right here. Again, it's fine, mistakes happen, we live, we learn. But I might end up redoing this page just because I'm not super happy with how it looks. These 2 are my absolute least favorite pages in this journal. By this point, I had been collaging for quite a few hours, I think, and so when I got to these 2, I was just tired. I was just done, and I just wanted to put it on the page and then go to bed. But I really should have waited until I had more energy and more creativity, but I didn't. And so this is what we have, which is not super pretty, and just like the one before it, I may end up going back and redoing these just because I really don't like how they look. Right next, I have like a quick little section that was on some of the Greek gods. This is a full spread over Poseidon, and I really like how the spread looks, just the aesthetics of it, just how it's laid out. I really enjoy it. I think this might have been my first time using this green paper, but I am just so proud of the deity pages. Just absolutely love them. All right, then the next one, another deity spread, this one Hades. Again, this is all information that you can research, but I just love how they turned out. I think they're just super aesthetically pleasing, and just love looking at these pages. Next, Persephone. Fun fact with Persephone's spread, she is kind of seen as a dual-sided goddess because she is the goddess of spring but also the queen of the underworld, so she has these aspects of life and death. So I tried to show that in how I did her spread, with this one being more focused on life and this one being the more chthonic death aspect, and then writing her associations to life in gold and her associations with the chthonic aspect in black. So really proud of these pages as well. Then next, this is just a section on ancestors and ancestor work. Some of this is more specific to me, like the origins that are here, and some of the associations, but the rest of this is pretty general information that you can find through any kind of books over ancestor work or online. But again, absolutely adore these pages. I think it's a lot easier for me to make pages when I already have a pretty set idea of the energy or the personality regarding the subject matter, if that makes sense. So I absolutely love the pages that are related to more direct spirits. Then next, this one is again, this one's more of a resource, so it is a sigil chart and then the process for how I make sigils. I really don't reference this so much anymore, just because I have it pretty much memorized, except the sigil chart. I do need to look up the sigil chart, but this process is pretty intuitive for me at this point. Alright, these 2 pages actually make me laugh. I originally meant to do a full section that was charging, cleansing, banishing, protecting, and I went and did my charging section and immediately got distracted by dirt and graveyard dirt. And so instead of putting the sections together the way I wanted, I just immediately dove into dirt right after charging. So the order might seem pretty random, but the reasoning is because you don't have to charge dirt. And so I just immediately went into dirt after charging, even though they don't seem correlated. But that was my thought process, was how to charge items, but you don't have to charge dirt because it comes from the earth. So seems random, but there was a reason. My brain was just super excited to talk about dirt, I guess. The next section is just general dirt instead of graveyard dirt, and I really like this section and just the earth tones. And from there, I went back on track and went to the cleansing section, which I have a ton of information on. And at this point, most of this information I was already pretty familiar with, so I didn't have a ton of detail, but it's just kind of the more basics of it and things that I don't reference as often anymore. Then moving on from cleansing, the full spread on warding, a lot of information on warding, and honestly I could probably do another full spread on warding, which is essentially just protection if you're not familiar with the concept of warding. But again, really liking how these turned out, just a little bit more moody. Really liked them. And going from warding, we went into banishing, which some good information here, but I honestly could probably add even more information to this. And right next to it, I just put a quick reference guide to some spirits and entities that I've interacted with before. This is not a full list, so do not take this as a full list. This is just some basic ones and some basic information around them. Then moving on, we have the astrology section. This section was heavily influenced by the Poseidon deity spread. I really liked how the colors and the different paper went together, so I utilized it again for the astrology section. I am not an expert on astrology, so all of this information is just from research that I've done and just very basic, just putting it down so I have somewhere to look. I'm hoping to get a little bit better with astrology in the future. I actually just bought an astrology workbook that I'm hoping will help me out, because I really only know like basic stereotypes of signs essentially, and then I do know a little bit about the different planets and what they mean. Right, from here, these are now my more recent spreads. I should be coming towards the end here. This spread is on black salt. It's really just a recipe and the different uses for black salt. And then same over here, this section is on moon water, how to make it, what to use it for, the different types. And I tried to kind of do associations to them that made sense in my head. So for those of you that don't know, black salt is extremely protective, and it utilizes salt and ashes, usually left over from burning paper or from burning incense. And then moon water is water that you charge under moonlight to take the energy depending on what type of moon phase it is. And I actually want to make another section that goes over different types of water, because moon water isn't the only option for charging water. You can also have eclipse water, sun water, things like that. So I definitely want to expand on this. And then this section is on divination. This again is just a very basic breakdown of divination. I could go into a lot more detail if I were to choose specific methods, and honestly I might end up going into more detail in later spreads, but this is just the basics of some methods, and then just how to use them, things that you can use them for, and of course a note that anything can be used for divination because they're just tools and the diviner is us. So nice little spread here. And then something I've been getting really interested in lately is kitchen magic, just because, you know, it's something that most people do every day. We cook food, we eat food, we make drinks, and so I have been getting very interested in kitchen magic just because it's one of the most basic forms and typically a lot of things that our ancestors would have done. And so I've been getting into it more recently. This is just some basic information. I want to do a little bit more research and then come back and make a more grand spread or a more specific spread, especially on the different associations with common ingredients. Usually if you are into witchy things, you'll know that associations are usually more reserved for herbs, not so much for actual ingredient items. For example, you might be able to find a ton of information on herbal correspondences to rosemary and sage and basil, but might have a harder time finding correspondences for tomatoes and rice and potatoes and beets and things like that. I have found one book has some of the ingredients correspondences, which is Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs, but again, it doesn't have everything, and I think that's kind of sad. I really want to find a book that has more of the correspondences with actual ingredients, just because it would be nice to include that in terms of cooking magic. And the last page, which is my most recent one, is a quick little spread on pine. Just kind of an herbal profile. I really enjoy pine, and living in Arkansas, there is a ton of pine everywhere. If you don't know, pine is literally our state tree, so I've grown up with it around me my entire life and wanted to just make a nice little spread. And I want to do a little bit more of these as well, and having spreads for more individual things like certain herbs or certain plants, things like that. But yeah, that is the last of my collage journal. As you can see, I still have a lot of pages to fill. I'm hoping it doesn't break the journal because the pages get so thick from all the work that I do, but it is one of my absolute favorite hobbies. I really enjoy collaging, and I highly recommend it. If you're looking for a creative outlet or just a creative way to put information together, then I think this could be a really good option. The only thing is, if you are a perfectionist, then you might shoot yourself in the foot a little bit if you make a mistake, because I got super focused on all the mistakes that I would make as I was doing this, but I also think it's a good practice and things not always being perfect. And I'm just really proud of how far it's come, and I'm super excited to add more to it when I have the time and when I get the creativity for it. So I hope you guys have all liked this video. Just getting to do a flip through. I might do a follow-up video in a few months that has maybe some of the updates to this, or if I decide to start another collage journal, which I've been thinking about, then I will be sure to include you guys as well. If you liked this video, please feel free to leave a like down below and comment if you have your own journaling methods or your own collage journals. I wish there was a way for you to post pictures in the comments so I could see them, but if you have YouTube channels, you could tag me in your own flip throughs as well. I would love to see them. But that's it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!